Okay. And we're live, I think. No, unless you're shape-shifted. Oh, there you are. Okay. All right.
Wouldn't be
We're
the
good.
first time.
I don't doubt that. Let's see. I'm going to put your name, and that way it'll go on your page. Ooh, it's hot in Mexico today. Uh, hmm. Yeah, I got some good responses on this show last week
As
from
did
people.
I.
You
Hmm.
did? Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
some people happened to catch it. I think more people. That's weird. They won't let me put my own name on here. Okay, that's cool. Hell, I don't know what the hell's going on. Some crazy stuff happening. 9/11. Let me just check X and YouTube real quick. Just want to make sure. I had a problem with it the other day. Okay, yeah, we're good. Yeah, it's going to take a minute for people to come in. All right. So here we are at the second episode of Soul Ghostbusters radio show with Liara Covert and yours truly. This is really her creation. I'm just facilitating and participating. And now that I've had one episode under my belt, I know what to expect because I didn't expect all the questions last week, but it rolled pretty good. I was surprised and I liked it because it was spontaneous. So it kind of shifted me. I've done this so many times. I'm usually, one a certain, certain characteristics, I guess, of dynamics that I come to the table with, and then it kind of got turned on me. But that's okay. That's all right. Oh, wrong button. So where would you like to start this week? Where would you like to
Well,
start at? Hmm,
it's interesting from based on last week's show, I got lots of interesting feedback and questions,
hmm,
and I feel it would be fun to start with a cartoon that I was sent. There's this cartoon with a black cat on a tree branch, and the black cat is standing next to a black raven, and they're talking. And the black cat says, "Why does everyone look at us and get scared?"
hmm.
And the raven replies, "It's all just in their story." And when it comes to superstition and the fact that we're coming toward Halloween, there are a lot of ghost stories that have been coming up. I wonder if you can relate to that.
Do you have some inside information?
We all
uh,
have inside
oh yeah,
information, Todd.
I know. You're very coy, but good, very good. Yeah, yes, of course. And I think it's understood that September 11th, 9/11, the number um, is a very powerful, um, you know, space and time, and I think the uh, one of the attributes of that is um, fear, you know, darkness, what's behind the curtain, ghostly, deception, So yeah, definitely, I'm feeling it.
Mm,
Yeah.
lots of people are. Well, we could build on that to sort of ask ourselves, what is it to be a multidimensional human? And how does this relate to ghosts? I wonder if you have a view on that, because I have some interesting comments that were shared with me on that topic.
Oh, really? So,
Mm.
from a multidimensional human, what is it? Say it again. What does it feel to? What is? Go ahead.
The idea is, well, first of all, what does it mean to be a multidimensional human, and how does that relate to ghosts?
Oh, wow, that's deep. Okay, this is what comes to me.
Maybe too deep to start.
No, 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 it's good. That's why I said I like showing up and I'm all effed up. You know, when you feel like you should have quarantined yourself so people can stay away from you. Um, well, this is how I feel about it, and I think it's like the perfect time to answer it, actually, for me. Okay, uh, so obviously there's this understanding of multi of my own multidimensionality through what we call paranormal psychic experiences, my own connection with the divine, etc. That's kind of evolved over the past 12 or 13 years with a lot of people, in the world. But the ghost, for me, and although I've had many paranormal experiences with that type of thing, right? The ghosts are in my human multi-dimensionality. It's in all the masks that I've worn. It's in the things I've been thinking about today. The ghosts that I've been thinking about, but not of anything outside of me, of myself. You
Mm,
know, it's like, who am I? But all of your personalities and all of your, like I said, all of your masks, all of your roles and labels show up. I remember when I first reawoke and I was guided to start making videos on the streets. And I remember the team coming in and telling me, you've got all these aspects of you, multi-dimensional aspects of you popping into you. So on one video, I would look like a fiery preacher. On the other one, I'd look like, another aspect of the higher multidimensionality. So I kind of see what's happening now as the same version, but at the human level. Like these are our children, these are our creations, be they conscious or not, they're a part of us. So it's a soul retrieval on the horizontal plane as opposed to, you know, the vertical. Yeah.
mm. I love that analogy. I love that it's inviting people to sort of reframe what they fear as a ghost that they can turn around and face. When it comes to nightmares, people will often be chased by something. It's quite a classic experience that's shared. But rarely do people turn around and see what form the fear actually takes. So when it comes to this idea of multi-dimensional nature, you could even go so far as to imagine that every line of thought we hold as a human being is actually a timeline.
Mm,
And so the ghosts in our experience are those things we actually pay attention to and evoke that fear. So they take form as associations. They could be people, places, or things, situations, and how we respond to them is really how we relate to what we fear. And it's a completely different way of looking at ghosts for a lot of people because when it comes to stories, cartoons, movies, books, Stephen King being, of course, a popular author we talked about during the last show, um, they have these huge followings of people who want to engage in this fear, but they don't necessarily know what to do with it. Can you
mm.
relate to that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, my relationship with fear has always been, it's like a catalyst, okay, for me. And I think maybe I'm a little bit different based on some of the things I've experienced in my life, but the um attraction of it, the mystique, I mean, it piques, even if you're a fearful person, it piques everyone's interest. Like, what's behind that curtain? Was that
Mm,
grandma's perfume I just smelled and she passed 10 years ago? Like there's certain things that, and so yeah, there's a part of us that, and going back to the Stephen King and the, I don't want to say cultish following, but there are people that are just, absorbed with it. And so yeah, I think it's kind of like an arm's distance thing. They're living vicariously through his stories. So that's kind of
mm,
like going to the zoo. You don't have to get into the cage with the wild animal. Um, but yeah, it's fear. The relationship with fear and the ghost is is very interesting because like everything else that we're finding, we can change our perception, our thought, and we have a new timeline. We have a new relationship. It's a new us. We see things differently. We see more of it, maybe. We see it. Yeah, we see more of it because we had stereotyped the mask that or the reflection that it was giving us, or the image it was giving us. There's a lot of there's a wealth of coding, information, data, wisdom in the ghost, and I think that's yeah, that's where maybe that's where we've gotten to.
Hmm.
Maybe we've gotten to a point of self-development that we can start to make that change in the perception.
Hmm. Well, what if what haunts us is actually what we ignore in a given environment?
Mm,
So, for example, we're often taught that, we only use a fraction of our brain. You can look at Luc Besson's Lucy film, and the theories about using full brain power and what might happen. But if we're only using a fraction of our brain power and we're only seeing a fraction of what is here, then 359 of 360 degrees, we're not seeing. We're not allowing ourselves to see. And that is spirit. This is what we're taught is beyond our scope of perception. But in fact, what if it's just training? What if, we've conditioned ourselves to only see a limited amount of what is right here with us right now? And that the ghosts are actually a stepping stone to expanding our perception and seeing more of ourselves.
mm.
How does that catch you?
Yes, I can see it both ways, and in the way I was talking to the on the previous show about this today, the paradoxical nature of the universal teaching method. So I can see that we're in that. I can see both. I can see in the 1% that we see of the 360 degrees, we are limiting. It's limiting. Yet it's both because in order for my vision to expand, I have to look at that 1% for everything that it is, and there are windows into the other 359 degrees through that 1% that I've never seen because I bought the hook, line, and sinker of what this reality was. But now, as you said this at the beginning, as I look at those things that I didn't want to look at, and understand that the only reason I'm not seeing and being fully present in the experience in that 1% uh, is because of my own blindness, um, of myself. And so I think it's both for me. I think I want to squeeze all the juice out of this 1% now that I'm not afraid of my shadow, and really dive into it, which is tough. And this is what's happening now for people. But at the same time, there's a direct relationship to the other 359 degrees, which all have their own facets and aspects. It happens, simultaneously. It's a huge, what would we call it, transformation, or a huge timeline shift.
Mm, almost definitely. And, you have increasing examples of people who will have glimpses of spirit that they haven't had before. And one of the things we talked about during the last show, and we can expand on, is also the sense of what's the difference between a ghost and a spirit. And for some people, it's the same thing. They use the terms interchangeably.
Mm,
But for other people, ghost represents something that is a shadow or is feared. And spirit is something that resonates with the heart, a guide that comes from a place of love. And what I find in terms of people who encounter me or find me is that they become a bit confused at times when they start seeing things they're not used to seeing. In fact, they start to question their perception and they start to
mm.
say to themselves, wait a second, am I losing my mind here? I didn't used to see this kind of thing. What's going on? Do you encounter that in people too?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And of course in myself, you know,
Hmm.
I mean, and what I found interesting was that when I first reawoke in 2011 and some of these things were happening, including apparitions, I was kind of split. Part of me said, I'm on a mission from God. I get this. I got the download. But the other part of me, because everybody was telling me I was crazy until I figured out I probably shouldn't be telling everybody, at least unless they're weird people like me, which we've all found now. But yeah, that's so the the difference between the spirit for me, I just had this in meditation, just in between, when I was waiting to come on the show. The spirit is the whole field. You might say my whole field, and the entity or the ghost is part of it. But it's a part of it that I experienced in a fantastical way, right?
Hmm.
Be it a guide or an ascended or an angel, 12-foot angels. So that was okay. But it's the other ones that I haven't looked at, and they seem to be directly linked to my shadow, the things I ignore and don't want to see, and of course, unconscious traumas seem to be part of that too. Those kind of pop in like a big surprise. Is what my experience has been. And
Oh, sure. Many people can certainly relate to that.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
it's almost as if anything we resist or doubt in our electromagnetic field is a ghost. And where we place focus on those things that bother us, that's a world unto itself. And so that's where we start to get consumed
Yeah.
by the sense of ghost, the sense of fear, that may feel like it's hard to get away from. And it's why sometimes we have recurrent nightmares at night when we're sleeping, or why we seem to fear different things that come into our life experience because we haven't been able to come to terms with whatever the root of that is.
Mm,
Lots of people come to me with stories like that.
wow. Wow. And I've seen, although I don't do, officially do energy work with people. I guess I exchange a lot through the show, um, but I've also seen, and recently, this is one thing I've noticed. So I'm back to the drawing board looking at myself, and so there's these rooted events or core reason, that initiates that. It could be a trauma, you know, um, and then from that, certain patterns of behavior develop. And where I can see many people over the years break new ground and break through because they've identified a core cause, but the ripples still play. And and that's kind of interesting. I think we talked about this on the last show about one ghost explained to me it was residual energy.
Hmm.
So if it's residual energy, even though it's a pattern, say there's a program, then there's the patterns of the program. Just because you cut the head off doesn't mean the rest of it goes away. And so
Mm.
really, because it's one is the other as a macro micro kind of thing, um, that means that residual energy is still in me. It's still going, hey, we're not done yet. And I'm like,
Exactly.
I'm tired of this shit. But yeah, no, but seriously, I just went through this in the last 24, in the last, what, 12 hours. And so the thing is, like in many cases, we have an exchange. It's with other humans. Uh, you thought that the patterns were gone, and then it happens, and then because we've matured, we reach a point where we say, you know what, this has nothing to do with that other set of eyes out there that doesn't belong to me. It has to do with me. So
Mm.
if I'm experiencing this, I can't, and I think another thing is we've come so far, we can't just poo-poo things away. We can't spiritually bypass anymore because the universe has come in and said, this is the no BS zone now, right? So what is it there that that I create, what is it in me that created this? And not in a judgmental way, just in what ghost have I ignored and denied for so long that I forgot they existed, you know?
Mm. Oh, so true. And it's like the point that you're making about trauma for some people, or many people really. Uh, this is kind of something that is the root of why certain ghosts keep reappearing, or why certain patterns happen. And you also make an excellent point when you say, just when you think you know what's happened, it doesn't seem to leave you alone. And you
Mm,
sort of start to ask the question, well, wait a second, what am I not getting here? And are we operating from a ghost inside ourselves or a ghost outside of ourselves?
mm,
Do we have a distorted lens? And where does this come from? And in my memoir, I do talk about five main wounds that I uncover in myself: abandonment, rejection, betrayal, humiliation, and injustice. And uncovering those wounds alone certainly didn't enable me to work through that energy. I actually share 100 ghost stories in this book, and the ghost stories are illustrations of how these patterns were playing out in my life in many different situations, locations, relationships. And it wasn't so easy as to have a mental understanding of what was going on. I had to look at it multidimensionally.
mm,
And one of the things that I feel it would be great to explore here on the show is to talk about brainwaves, because the state in which we experience something has a tone, it has a music. We're all musical instruments by nature, we're antennae. We receive, decode, and transmit energy. And so when you are reflecting on wounding, when you're reflecting on ghosts or re-experiencing these patterns, there's more than one thing going on. It's just not on a mental level, is it?
mm. Yeah, that's a mouthful. Um, yeah. Well, as I'm listening to you, it's taking me through scenarios. And
Why don't you share one?
well, I mean, it's just how my brain uh, operates. I'm listening. This is our multidimensionality, maybe. That I'm listening. I can hear every word, and then I see the little movie. So I would have, like many people, a chief antagonist in your life. You might have three or four of them, but I'm talking about, a lot of times it's a parent, sibling, whatever, right? I'm not going to name names. That it's not important because the imagery is. And so as I'm listening and kind of reliving chronologically from a little boy all the way up, the dynamics of the relationship. Um, you get to a point several times where you say, I'm blocking you out of my life, you know? And like you said, the residual in whatever form or fashion is going to come back around. We can talk about the spiral, we can talk about loops, and until you make a new choice. But so again, going back to ourselves and taking the other person out of the equation, and not in the sense of blocking them, but in the sense of blame, responsibility, origination. You know what I mean? Because if you have a conflict in this realm, which is an irrational realm, it doesn't matter. It's not about who started it. It's now become about who walks away from it, without a charge. To say I'm no longer going to play on this playground, and then hopefully the other one does the same thing. The other people do the same thing. But what I'm saying is that in this particular relationship, which is a very long term relationship in my life, I'm 63, and so over the years, over the decades, it's been a chief. Um, uh, this person's been a great teacher, and that relationship has primarily been um, experienced above the human, you might say. Appealing to their higher self in meditation, et cetera, et cetera. But ultimately, it's come back to that I put on a wider set of lenses, and I can see in that multidimensionality, and I speak to it in that multidimensionality. So that means all parts. And that doesn't mean that that person might not trigger me again. But because the path has already been paved, it's much easier to get back on track and to remove those uh, illusionary stigmas that we attach to symbols that are people, and and see them, because that ultimately is what it is for me. Whatever that energy is externally, that ghost is me. That person is me. And I want to see them as me, which means I want to see their soul and and what it's everything that is comprised of is available for me to see. And that includes ghosts.
Mm, that's a great example. I've had a couple of people come to me this week with some examples, and I'd like to share a few.
Mm,
Is an individual who's been married 4 times. And this individual has sort of been running away from a pattern and hadn't been conscious and aware of what the pattern was. And this person also happened to encounter some ghosts. In one place, he had been living in a house that was haunted. And so the haunting in the house, the ghost that he was perceiving, was actually a projection of something he was not ready to face within himself. And over a period, he started to recognize the pattern inside himself, why he was choosing the people he was choosing as partners, and why he was having a similar obstacle or conflict that would arise. Many people would relate to this in terms of sort of an abusive relationship. It's a classic example where someone will get into a relationship over and over again with different people, but encounter the same issue. And
mm,
with this particular person, it wasn't abuse specifically, but it was a challenge for him. And for him, seeing the ghost, encountering the ghost, distracted him from the physical relationships, but it set him on a path to explore himself. So there are relationships between the ghosts we see in front of us, our projections, and what we're experiencing in our actual daily lives.
mm,
And making this connection can help people step back from the fear they often associate with the ghost encounters. We've got such a huge range of movies, from poltergeist to exorcisms and possessions. And these kinds of movies and stories are always associated with something outside of ourselves,
mm,
something we want to run away from, something we reject, something we question or distrust. They're all very dense, low vibrational energies. And once we start to bring those things back to ourselves and look at our own experience and what that is mirroring for us, what it's showing us, it it takes the power away from the ghost outside of us
mm.
and helps us bring our power back. And how many people today are talking about wanting to reclaim lost power or reclaim inner power? This is a very strong way we can do that. And a lot of people I feel would benefit. What do you figure?
Yes, and yeah, because I think what's happening is we're coming to different um, choices, and we're finding out how things work better. They become more refined, and for instance, uh, the claiming the power back. I mean, based on based on the explanations and the narratives and the overall perception. This was an external thing. This wasn't anything that having to do with me, you know.
Mm,
And so you move along and you start to shift and you start to understand, oh yes, this is showing me something. So again, I can go back to the example I just gave you, which, I'll say this, and I say this with the deepest respect. It's my mother, right? And we're very, very connected, right? And I can remember for years people come on the show and they'd say, we talk about the mother, and they'd say, well, you don't know my mother. Like, wait a minute. So you're an exception to that, to that whole thing. But anyway, that's just kind of a joke. But so again, the the everything changes. Everything gets reborn. You know, it everything shifts when when that power back becomes an inside job, and meaning that nobody has anything to do with me getting my power back. I could be, incarcerated, and I have been, and you know, even and you learn a lot in that environment. I was in the county jail in Houston one time for 34 days, and it was very interesting. It was with 25 guys in an open cell, and it was very interesting watching their energy, and I learned a lot because they were taking they were in the process of gaining their power or maintaining their power. Let's put it that way, sustaining their power. And of course, that's kind of a tough environment to do it. But going back to that first story and what I've come to from it is that okay, because a lot of it is brought to my attention by my nervous system. So what I
Mm,
started to notice was this mirror and this mirror and that mirror, which all happened to be feminine, created a nervous reaction in me. So I was then able to go, oh, wait a minute. It's still me. I found it in this first one, and I believe those people that come and provide, you might say the hardest, but let's just say are the greatest catalyst, okay, which isn't always comfortable to the human. I believe those people are the closest to us in the soul, in the atmosphere of soul, in the higher dimensions, however you want to put it. But anyway, that's what I was able to see. I was able to see, oh, well, for instance, if a woman starts to talk to me in a certain way, I'm actually hearing it through my scars and through my trauma, okay,
mm,
which I also associate with particular, figures or this and that. And then I start to realize, oh, wait a minute, I can change these glasses. I can see the same ghost repeating itself, which again is a message to me and life reflecting back to me. And you go to work on it. And I'm still working on it, you know.
mm. Well, I love the story of your mother and the story that you share about the prison too. In Australia, there's someone by the name of Ajahn Brahm, who is the head of the Buddhist Association of Western Australia. He's originally British, but one of the stories he shares is about going to visit prisons. And many people would say, why would you do that? You go and see all these criminals. And the first thing he would reply is, I go to see human beings. He doesn't see them with labels. And he goes in with a neutral energy and he sees things in a very different way, which we all have the capacity to do because 99% of everything is rejected through our filters because of our shielding, because of our experiences, our belief systems, our fears, our defense systems. So that's what we're seeing through. And as we dismantle those things, that's when the ghosts lose the power they seem to hold over us.
Mm,
And we sort of move closer toward this whole concept of unity consciousness that people
mm,
talk about.
mm. Yeah, that's a good story. It's a smart man. Um,
Mm,
One of the things that I learned too in the first 2 years, as I told you before, first 2 years of my awakening, I chose to be homeless most of the time. Uh, and um, when you're in a situation, when you get into a situation like, say, the 34 days in the county jail, or because I was in with the big offenders. Like
mhm,
it wasn't like, a bunch of, jaywalkers, but and also on the street to be at a place where you go beyond vulnerable, where you're not protected in any way whatsoever. Something happens to you, you change. And it's very revealing. Uh, and it's not to say that you don't have fear, but
mm,
you kind of it's kind of like I have nothing to lose now. So when I would come
Mm.
across, because I had a lot of that activity in the first 7 months in particular, I turn around and I see, well, a cab driver shape shifts into what looked like, a reptilian. And I just saw three car accidents on the way home from the dancing at the club, right? And and they were all fatalities. One, two, three, and everything happens in threes, right? And the next thing I know, this guy, but and that was one of the first times I noticed it because so when it happened, because he couldn't speak English, and all of a sudden he turned to me and he said something to me in English, okay, about what had just gone on in my life, the traumas. He spoke to the traumas like on a personal level, like he was inside.
Mhm.
So I already knew I was beaten at a high vibration, but you still have the elements of the human, right? And all those things we don't know and haven't experienced because we didn't have the eyes. So this happens, and I immediately went into I'm driving I'm driving down the highway with this being, okay, and I am soul. That's all I got, and may not keep me alive, but so what I did was I jumped in the front seat. I jumped in the front seat to get a better look at the ghost and
Mm.
to, you know what I mean? Not a power move, but just like, hey, I got nothing to lose now. So who are you? What are you? How the hell did this happen? Am I, losing my mind or what? So yeah, there's something about getting to a point where uh, you look at your ghost in the eye, not because you're a badass, but because you've tried everything else. And
And it's not working.
right. And the eyes are the mirror of the soul, right? So that doesn't just apply to me and you, it applies to our ghost and our demons and our angels, right? I mean, it's all of it.
Mm. Oh,
Ghost.
it is. And the story you share reminds me of Men in Black.
Which one?
I'm sure that there's this series of movies some people could reflect on, but essentially there are aliens around,
Oh yeah, yeah.
extraterrestrials, and people are experiencing them in different ways.
Mm,
And we can look at every book and every movie, from the point of view we're at. So if you see aliens as your version of ghost, or you see um, a felon as your version of a ghost, or a rapist, or whatever it happens to be. They're all symbols. They all have something to tell us about ourselves. And it's not the things that bother us that are the most important thing. It's the reasons we attach to it. Why do we draw the symbol into our experience?
mm,
What does it have to tell us? What is the wisdom that it's offering? And once you see that blessing in disguise, it's amazing how life transforms, isn't it?
yes. Yes, that's true. Um, it's, ghost. I just the whole connotation of the words changed in 2 weeks for me. It's two episodes. No, because it's such a perfect word. A lot of the words that we use now that are associated with what we call this transition, the ascension, or whatever, uh, they're they have multiple connotations. They get diluted. They get, I mean, it's just all over the place. But
Mm,
the word ghost is so so multi dynamic in itself. There's so much there, and I think that for me, the reason that it carries that feeling, because that's what it is, it feels different now, is because of the fact that we haven't looked, or I haven't looked at it. I speak for myself. I
mm,
thought I had. I thought I had looked at, like I was saying earlier when you were laughing, but I thought that was done and dusted. Oh, that ghost? Yes. Okay, that one's done. Oh, no, 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 no. That one had a son, or it had a twin, or something else, and it comes back. And that's to me, this is probably the most um, productive self reflection period of my life. This summer has
mm,
been has been the deepest dives in, for every ghost that I'm reconnecting with or connecting with and learning from. I'm also realizing every step of the way it's as infinite inward as I thought it was outward. So,
Mm,
so these waters run deep. This is me, though. This is my divinity. This is my
mm,
light and dark. This is my abyss, my bottomless pit. This is light. This is light, wisdom.
mm. Well, sometimes people find that it's interesting, more comfortable, more appealing to explore the ghosts they see in movies and books.
Mm,
And it can help them go into whatever they're really ready to go into. And when we hear the word ghost, some people will think of Demi Moore and, the romantic ghost version where, she's dealing with something romantic as an energy around her. And we can look at other movies where there's a ghost and there's sadness that is in the field.
mm,
And then again, there are ghosts where it's horror, where it's fear that is the focus. And whatever we're dealing with, that's the kind of movie or book or situation that we're drawing into our experience in order to help us process it.
mm,
And we can process things easier sometimes when they're outside of ourselves. And there's nothing wrong with that. There are different ways to work through the energies that are passing through our field. And that's part of why there's such variety of movies
mm.
and books out there, right? Do you have a
Mm.
favorite?
Do I have a favorite?
Hmm.
I don't know. Mine would probably be like there's a movie called Donnie Darko. Uh,
Ah,
that's pretty cool. I mean, my spin is a little bit different. Mine is, like almost like a dark humor
mhm.
to it. Or I think there was one years ago when I was a kid. It was black and white, and the guy had a he had a friend that was, I think, a giant rabbit or elephant. It
Mm,
was a famous movie. It was a black and white movie, probably made in the early '60s. Um, but yeah, I do think there is something to be said for the variety of representations that we have developed as a culture.
mm,
And I still, like I was just, again, the movie was playing in my head as I'm listening to you. There have been times where I was extremely terrified. Like, when you ever have a situation where it hits you and your whole body goes off and your heart just starts racing, right?
mm,
You know what I mean? Uh, and even that is a gift.
mm,
That's like, a major eruption or a major tremor. It's got to be dislodging something. And this happens in dreams sometimes, occasionally. You'll wake up and you'll be like, oh my God, I thought I was going to die, but um, it's interesting. It's interesting because of the typical connotation of a ghost, right? Oh, well, that's dark and that's mysterious. It's over here. It's over here in the corner. But it actually has as many faces as the rest of it that we've explored because it was all warm and cushy, fluffy love and light. There is humor in the energy of Ghost. There is grief. There is fear. There is love. Demi Moore, that show, Ghost with Whoopi Goldberg and Patrick Swayze. I
mm.
mean, so it's all there. Uh, it's all there. We just haven't looked.
And I guess it's also based on what appeals to us at a given moment. Like
Mm,
Casper the Friendly Ghost, there's humor there. There's
mm,
many comic strips out there that also explore the meaning of ghosts. And again, they're drawing people in based on different emotions, different triggers, different pulls. And we don't consciously necessarily know that these things are happening, but the more conscious we are about our associations with ghosts and with what's going on in our lives, the more enriching our lives actually become.
mm. Yeah. Yes, because and you said which is your favorite. One of my favorite. I have a weird mind, but one of my favorite ones was, I think it was Barbara Hershey's first movie, and it was called The Entity, and it was based on a book I had read
Mhm.
about a visitor, an etheric entity that visited her, and basically there was ghost intimacy. And so she's trying to tell everybody this, and nobody will listen to her. It's all
Mm,
they're trying to figure it out. But my point is that yeah, because there is always this element of mystery or unknown,
mm,
okay? And that's interesting because what I think we're getting to here is that the mystery and the unknown is simply because we haven't looked, right?
mm,
That's simply what it is. So we've connotated this image of ghost and that type of thing, and yet it's full of new wisdom. It's not really being blocked. The veils are our own veils, right? And then I think
mm,
the other thing that I'm big, and I know you are. I'm big into um, um, the indigenous culture. And
mm,
if you look at their relationship with energy, entities, etc., myths, that's a pretty interesting path to go to kind of widen things. Because one of my one of my takeaways from that type of research or that type of experience, I mean, I can walk when my journey first started and I started to travel in 2016. I ended up in Arkansas, and I would go off on walks in the woods. Like I would have never done that before, right? Uh, but there was a connection. Like in other words, if I was going to walk into a particular place, I would say I would speak to those things I couldn't see. I would speak to those energies and entities and say, I'd like to walk through here and uh, just experience it and explore. And come no harm, anything like that. And it became easier and easier and easier for me. And as I did it, I would see more and more and more. Right.
mm. I love how you make the connection with nature
Mm,
and how we have this mysterious connection to the unseen, and that the more or closer our connection becomes with the external idea of nature, being
mm,
trees, vegetation, water, oceans, uh, the more open we are to receiving messages from, you can call it the dream time, the ancestors, our lineage. Um, it's a very different interaction we have with non-physical energies. Uh, you can look at different indigenous cultures, as you point out, who are closely connected throughout their lives to the spirit realms
mm,
because they have a sense of peace and wisdom and respect, reverence for these things. And the relationship that people have with ghosts tends to be it's associated with fear. So it's not really a relationship, it's an alienation, it's a rejection, it's an I don't want to see. And so that's part of why these things keep coming back in different forms, like a mutating bacteria or
mm,
or a series of nightmares that
mm,
you're chased by different things. But each of those things is really representing the same thing that you haven't been ready to see. So there's this whole spectrum of experiences we can have with the non-physical. And once we remove the term ghost and remove the term spirit, and we replace it with something neutral, like
mm,
energy,
mm,
then the experience changes again.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm just recalling too, like different times uh in my life, even before my reawakening. I remember I was in my 20s and I was at my grandmother's house and I was taking a nap on the couch, and my grandfather and his mother were standing behind me, and I
Mm,
I knew it to my bones. But I had been seeking them.
mm,
I had been seeking them because I was really getting diving into my into my culture, into my family, into the roots, the history of it. And then I think of two other times too. One, One was today as well. So this is obviously a reason for this coming up. In other words, we can ask, right? So
Mm.
when I first woke up, I was 7 months into it, and I had a big um, uh, kind of a watershed moment approaching. So I went for a walk, came back, sat down on the bed, and I had a pretty good sized tumbler of tea and a glass tumbler that was from dinner, and it was already room temperature. It was lukewarm, and so I put my hands together and I said, "Can I trust this path, this potential path?" You know, and the glass just shattered. Right, it just shattered like somebody shot it with a shotgun, shattered it all over me. And so I had, you know, not terror, but my heart raced, and I realized, it's been trying to tell me this a few times, and I wasn't ready to hear it, or I didn't listen, but this put me over the edge. I'm like, okay, I got it.
Mm.
But today it happened. Today, as I was trying to work out some of the things I experienced last night and this morning, took it into myself, and I said, and I think we do this sometimes, and this may not qualify as a ghost, but I think it does. Uh, so I said, you know, I find it kind of hard to explain now when I connect, like, because I have this feeling of, well, I'm talking to myself. It's all me. But I said, going to source, to the source, to the whole, please help me. But I do it in a way where it's not like that's outside of me, but it
Mm.
is, it's like both, I guess. And so I was like, I would like to see what I can't see in myself, or something like that. And immediately, okay, I hear this weird, loud tone, like a reverberating tone. It wasn't like, it was like, but it was very tonal, harmonic. And it starts to go off, and I can almost see the waves coming at hitting me in the head. And then another one goes off on the right side. And then my legs start shaking, and then tears just start falling out of I wasn't sobbing, but they just started coming out. And I'm like, trying to like contain myself. And it went on for a couple of minutes. So talking to you and reflecting on these three things now, I realize um, we don't have to wait for them.
No.
We can seek them out, and they will
Mm.
come. Build it and they will come.
Yeah. Let's build it and they will come. A
Yeah.
famous.
Yeah. From Field of Dreams. Yeah. Which was
That's
Ghost.
right.
That was a Ghost.
That's right.
Yeah.
It was ghosts as well. You see, you can find ghosts everywhere if that's in your scope. It's the reticular activating system, the RAS of the brain.
Mm,
If your mind's on something, then you're going to project things to reinforce that. But I love how you point out how important and powerful it is to consciously set the intention of
mm,
what you're looking for, and reaching out for the information, the insight, the wisdom, and being open to receiving what comes. And if it comes in the form of a deceased ancestor, if
mm.
it comes in the form of a giant kangaroo, if it comes in the form of whatever it happens to be, if you're open and receptive, you're going to receive it. And you're
Yeah.
going to recognize that the symbols that you're inviting into your dreams at night, or inviting into your life experience when you're walking around, is all incredibly powerful and valuable. But it all depends on how receptive you are to what you encounter, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Which is funny, because it works the same way with people. We're finding, as we take everything into ourselves, we're seeing them in a whole different way now. And there
Mm.
is there is wisdom. It's just not by these conventional methods that we qualify life as, you know. And really, like you said, you can find them everywhere. So I like to write, and I like to write poems. I like to write songs, to rap and to sing in melody. Uh, and so there are times in my life where I will call in Ghost. I will call in Leonard Cohen, and he'll
Mm.
sit with me, or I'll call in Prince and he'll sit with me, or, a variety of other artists, right? Leon Russell, one of my favorite, he passed a couple of years ago. I call him in. I want to write a
Mm,
song. Let's write a song together. Uh,
beautiful.
Technically, that's a ghost.
Hmm.
You know, I can't prove it to anybody. I can show things that I've written that I can see their influence. You know what I mean?
Mm,
But that's all that matters. It doesn't matter. It's my experience and my truth, you know, and you know, I guess ultimately my love and wisdom and openness to the ghost and the
mm,
possibilities.
mm. Well, I love how our show today has come full circle because we're coming back to the whole notion of what does it mean to be multidimensional and
Hmm.
how does this relate to ghosts? Because we've been talking about the idea of being able to experience them in nighttime dreams, in our walking life, but also in all the emotions, the whole spectrum of feelings that we can go through. If we're laughing, if we're crying, if we're yelling, all of these voices are part of us. And our relationship to ourselves is changing the more we grow conscious of what's going on inside us and who we are.
Hmm. Yeah. Yes. And I think what you said too about intention, right? I mean, it works in the moment, but it works overall too. If we truly, if we can truly remove the blinders that we have on, and we all have them on, because
Mm.
otherwise we would see them. But like the prayer today, you know, my intention, this is my intention. My intention is show me all my ghost, you know, with ease and grace, preferably. But, you know, show me the meaning of this interaction. Um, show me my, what I can't see.
Mm.
You know, this is a self, uh, you know, it's driven by self. It's driven by us. The I am, the I am, you know, all the way down to the I am human, and it's all there. Uh, and so, like they say, you know, you're the director, you're the actor, you're the writer. But yeah, I think if we have an overall intention to truly find those things that we don't know about ourselves, then there's really no way to lose. I mean, you can't. What are you going to lose? I mean, you're going to lose fears, and you're going to lose, you know, probably not in a bad way, ignorance, you know, just from because you didn't know. And you know the old saying, you know, once you know better, you do better.
Mm. And and it follows that everything is in a process of coming back to love. So
Mm,
everything is a message about love. It's a
mm,
nudge to see love where we think it's absent. It is offering us the opportunity to reframe, or rescript, and re-experience things from a
mm.
different point of view. And if that resonates on a vibrational level, if you see and experience things through energy, then that's one dimension, but there are many others. And there's
Yeah.
no right or wrong here. It's simply an opportunity to learn more about yourself and have fun doing it.
Yeah. You're right. It did come full circle. Because if I look at the conversation, and again, the movie's playing in my head, um, you know, like everyone has guides. Well, those are ghosts. Three of them from a former life. My three main guides were relatives from a former life. Or a lot
Mm,
of people will have Yeshua, or you know, Mother Mary, or Kuan Yin, or you know, Germain, or Merlin, or all the above, or dragons. But uh, but you're right. You do evolve. I had this intense fear
mm,
fear of rats. Okay,
mm,
and 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 just you know like you know like okay, that was it. So I'm in a basement. This is early Sology. I'm just now getting on my feet, you know, probably 300 or 400 episodes in. And I rent this basement in Georgia from a friend of mine. Well, the basement hadn't been used and it was huge. And I go into the main room, and it was a mess. I had to clean the whole thing up, right? And so the ceiling was open, and in the ceiling was something died.
mm.
So there was flies everywhere. There were I've probably threw out three or four dead rats. Okay. And so,
Yum.
and at this, right, at the same time, I'm cleaning this place and I'm sensitive to all the energy and I'm seeing what went on in that room and it was some heavy stuff, you know. So I started to communicate with the ghost. I start communicating with the rats. I communicate with the flies. I tell them what I'm doing. I tell them I love them. I open my heart and say, you know, we're going to have to part company here. Shake hands and part company because, you know, this is not going to work for me. But the interesting thing is, going back to what you said, uh, when I got to the very end of it, and I mean, I think I filled up she had a big driveway. I think I filled it up 3 times. And because I was, you know, throwing stuff out too. But I got to this last little crook, this little alcove was blocked, and I moved everything out. Very last corner, I see a ghost, and the ghost was a not too big in stature, but I could tell it had been in the darkest and deepest corners of you know of the abyss, I guess. Uh, and so it almost like it was in the corner, and it almost like shrunk a little bit. And I said, "Hey, man, this is what you know Yeshua taught me. I'm going to open my heart to you and just
Mm,
step in." So that was one that I had gone through the exercise, but I'd never had the experience with the actual ghost. And the rest is history. You know, it was a prolific period with a lot of uh, psychic, you know, activity and otherwise uh, that I feel like was allowed to come in once everything was cleared. You know,
mm.
there was like a
What a
direct
wonderful.
relationship. Yeah,
I was just going to say, what a wonderful relationship or what a wonderful experience to share the idea of being the soul escort, because ultimately, when ghosts do present to us from the non-physical, there are those who simply require that in order to move on. They
yeah,
need to be seen, they need to be
yeah,
validated and
yeah,
loved. And when you are open as a channel and
yeah,
you're able to give that priceless gift, then that is a stepping stone for others as well.
yeah,
So I love that story. Thanks for sharing. I've been
yeah,
there and
yeah.
it's a wonderful thing to do.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. That's exactly what it felt like. Like I don't remember the exchange, but it was like, "Hey, I can go now," something like
Yeah.
that. Thank you, I can leave now. You know, and so yeah,
Mm.
very cool, very cool. Yeah, okay, I'm digging this. This is fine.
Mm.
So, yeah, do you want to cover anything else? I just noticed that right when I was finishing it up, you started talking. It was 1 hour, 11 minutes, 11 seconds on September 11th.
I love it.
I know, I know. Yeah.
It's beautiful. Well, there are other stories that have been shared with me, but we'll have coming shows where we can
Mm,
explore some of those. And people have also been talking to me about specific movies. So perhaps for our listeners, if there are particular movies or books that you feel are especially meaningful for you in your ghost journey,
yeah.
share that with us, and then we can explore that on the program.
Right on. Sounds great. Yeah, we'll have to do something to facilitate that. I think we can do that now. Actually, we can do it next week. I've already got the broadcast software to do it. You can take phone calls, and you can also pop people in the studio as well. And there's a lot of other attributes that it has. Lots of bells and whistles and tools. So we can use
Very exciting.
graphics and movies and all kinds of stuff. All right. Well, thank you so much. I look forward to next week. Same bat time, same ghost time, same ghost channel.
Yes, come here, visible and invisible, both at the same
There
time.
you go. All right. Take care. Good night,
Peace,
everybody.
everyone. Thanks for joining us.